100% one day is going to look different than 100% another day.
Right.
And if you're giving 100, you know what I mean? There's so many components to what that looks like. So to beat yourself up over like, well, this day I did this, this, and this, and I couldn't this day. I'm like, well, did you do everything you could? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, then be proud of yourself.
Right. On today's episode, we have IFBB Pro and our dear friend Heather Dees, and we talk about the physical component, fitness and nutritional component, and how that balances in to, the main areas of balance, and how also mental and emotional strength and resilience is a component of physical fitness. And really, she tells her story on how she developed into, getting her pro card and really developed her body composition into what she was striving for and her accomplishments and so on. And so I hope this resonates, and we hope you enjoy.
I feel like we get so caught up in like, I'll be happy when, instead of going, I'm happy now and I'm going to enhance my life with this. Because we can, that's so easy to do, right? Like just living to be happy when you've accomplished this. But if you live in that mindset, it's like, who knows if that's what's going to bring you happiness, and who knows what along the way might detour you to some completely other goal. And that's like one thing for me. I haven't had like babies yet, or a baby, and that's one thing like I think I've held on to. But what I've realized through this process and through my own growth was, and actually a girl brought this up on the call the other day of like not being able to have children. It's like what you thought your life was going to look like, right? And what looked like happiness to you was something that somehow was programmed into you at some age, or, and I have this deep desire to be a mom too, but my life has taken such a different route, and I wouldn't trade it for what I thought I wanted. And doesn't mean I don't still want that goal. And I think there's so many possibilities for that goal to still happen for anybody. But for me, especially, like the growth that I have gone through and the experiences I've gone through in my life, through all of the struggles, have made me such a better person than I knew I could even be. And not to like toot my own horn, but just like knowing that if I do get that opportunity now, I'm going to be such a better mom just because of it. Right. And maybe that was the thing, was my, if you believe in this, your children up in heaven, it's like, you're not ready yet. Like you still have to go through this, and this is going to be a struggle, and, or whatever the component may be, or idea may be, but letting go of what I thought and it was supposed to look like, to accepting where I'm at and the growth that has come despite that whole thought process has made me just kind of relax in that, right? Relax in the moment of going, okay, this is where I'm at. I am happy. And if that component comes into my life, it's going to add to my happiness. It isn't my entire happiness.
Yeah, no, I love that. And one thing that I think of often when it's like, this hasn't happened yet, then, I think what brings kind of clarity to that is it just hasn't been enough time. There just hasn't been enough time yet, give it some more time and see how it plays out. But one thing I just thought of, my sister sent this to me, which I love, and it reminds me of what you're talking about. But it was this guy that said, when a trauma causes you to become stronger, it's called post-traumatic growth, PTG, instead of, stress.
PTG. I love that.
Yeah. So PTG happens in about 10% of people who experience traumas, and includes a deepened spiritual life and a new appreciation of life and a vision for new possibilities and positive change. So when you're going through those traumas, can you, instead of replaying it over and over again, or those difficult things, or those lost or missed expectations that haven't happened yet, can you turn it into that growth and deepen that spirituality? And if you can, You're in the top 10% of that emotional resiliency, you know? And I think that if we give anything enough time, it'll all play out. And we'll have the opportunity for anything and everything we want to do. So you're just learning other things right now. And then, you know,
totally,
the kids will come when they're ready or when you're ready.
Right.
Just hasn't been enough time.
Right. Yeah, there's so many experiences I've been able to have because I haven't had kids, that if I just was like, oh, I've missed this opportunity, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have had these other opportunities. So it's like important to kind of stop and reflect on why, first of all, we thought by whatever this age or this time in my life, it was supposed to look this way. Like, where did that even come from? Is it because society said it? Is it because when you were young, that's what people told you and it's this deep-seated programming? Because it's not going to look that same. And it's even the way we are educated in school or in religion of what things are supposed to look like. Like, why we should question that, because if it isn't looking that way and it's disrupting our peace, then we need to question that and be like, what actually has come about and what can I see and how do I want to progress with what I can control and not what I can't control. That's one thing I've learned, is like trying to step out of trying to control things that I don't have the ability to, and like diving into those things that bring me peace and my ability to control has helped me be such a more relaxed person in all the things that I feel like I've maybe should have done by now.
Totally. I love that.
Well, that state of, and you said the word acceptance, right? That state of acceptance versus resistance, it's such a different state, but I think so many get lost in how things are supposed to be based off of what, right? Like you said, based off of what school taught you, what religion taught you, whoever taught you
Society says.
Is that beneficial for you? But at the end of the day, what I think and what we know is that the more time we spend worrying about why something's happened, we're totally looking over the blessings and the gratitudes that are showering upon us in that moment, because our focus is so fixated on something that shoulda, coulda, woulda happened, instead of opening up our perspective to what's all around us. Because like you said, like there are some things that, you know, all of us are like, oh, I wish that could happen. But I mean, when we talk about like weight loss or muscle gain in the gym, you know, obviously, you know, as a guy, in going to the gym, I'm trying to, you know, add muscle on a daily basis, which doesn't always happen, right? But
of course,
but at the end of the day, like I found in my own fitness journey that when I've let go of like, oh crap, I ate this much food, I'm eating 5,700 calories, I should be doing this, or should, like, my weight has gone up by default and I've been eating less because of my emotional state surrounding that, right? Is the state of acceptance like, wow, I feel really good right now. I'm getting great sleep. I'm like eating good. Like my workouts have been so great over this last like month or two. And like, I feel so great, but it's because I'm, you know, I've let go and I'm just accepting of like, you know what? I feel great. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. And I think that for everyone in every aspect is like when you just let go, right? And just be in that acceptance state and feel the gratitude and the love for self for what you are putting forth, the effort you are putting forth. And look, we can always put forth more effort. There's always, I don't think that there's going to be a day in anyone's life where you're like, I put forth the most effort I could possibly do, right? There's always going to be that component of, I can ratchet it up a little more tomorrow.
It's true, but I think coming from a state of acceptance for more growth is much more efficient and beneficial than coming from a state of lack or fear.
Oh, 100%.
Of like
and
negativity.
That's
right?
what I'm saying. Like being grateful for what you did put in that day, rather than being resentful of like, oh man, I could have done this, right? And just staying in that elevated state of gratitude for what is, but also the possibilities of what's to come. Because the more we worry about not being where we should be, the more we diminish our possibilities and potentials of what could come to us, because we're fixating our focus on what we don't have, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I tell my clients all the time, 100% one day is going to look different than 100% another day.
Right.
And if you're giving 100, you know what I mean? There's so many components to what that looks like. So to beat yourself up over like, well, this day I did this, this, and this, and I couldn't this day. I'm like, well, did you do everything you could? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, then be proud of yourself.
Right.
And then, you know, feel whatever that desire is to push it a little bit more and take that into the next day instead of sitting there focusing on what didn't happen, because you can't control that anyway. It's already past. And to live in that present moment, being like, well, I am proud of this and I did this. So tomorrow I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to add this component. And it's just that constant progression instead of, like you said, living in that state of fear or lack or like shoulda, coulda, woulda, that's never going to bring anything better because it's past. Right. You're already past it.
Yeah, and you just need, again, more time, right, for things to play out. That's my solution. That's my answer. Just needs more time.
Just need time.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and there's different theories about that, like, about time. But I just think just string together some consistent effort over a period of time, and you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish in any area of life.
Well, right, like Tony Robbins says, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, this is kind of along those lines, but like creating a vision board is a really common thing, like a lot of people do, right? But one thing I've learned even this year is creating an evidence board where it's like, what on that vision board, without you really even thinking about it, did you actually accomplish? And having an evidence board going, oh my gosh, like this was there and I kind of forgot about it, but I just went day to day stringing each little thing along, like a little better here and there. And in the end, it's like, it came true. It came about. And it was like, I had that vision in my head. And whether you're always consciously aware of your vision, it's already there and you're living in that. And it's in your subconscious mind, even to go back and be like, oh my gosh, look at my vision board from last December. And I created one this year. I was like, oh my gosh, this is evidence, this is evidence, this is evidence. So whether I was like really aware of me working towards it or not, it came true. And that's so fun to kind of look at that, because then you can go, well, it works. So what bigger goals or bigger dreams do I have that I get to put on my next vision board? And kind of whether you just remember it and look at it constantly or a little bit forget about it and just go about your life progressing. It's like so inspiring to be like, oh my gosh, I have evidence that I did create all of those things that I envisioned.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we've all been conditioned to focus on what we don't have. And that evidence twist is such a great thing to be aware of what we have accomplished, right? There's the old story of I think it was Einstein. I mean, one of the smartest people to ever live, right? He was teaching a class and he wrote, 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, all the way through 10. And he put the wrong answer, got 1 through 8 right, and put the wrong answer on 9. And the class pointed out what he did wrong. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I got 9 out of 10 though, which is 90%. Like, wouldn't you say that's pretty good? And I could be totally obliterating the story, which is possible. But the students said, well, you got that one wrong, instead of focusing on like, hey, good job. You got 9 out of 10 right, which in any arena would be an absolute wonderful job, right? So I love that you brought up the evidence board. It's constantly, being aware and expanding our hearts and our minds to not only what we have accomplished, but then feeding off of that and feeling the gratitude for that, and then shifting that gratitude and what else can we do? Who else can we serve? What else what else is possible for me? Because it's so easy to get drowned out in the holy cow, I'm not making this money and I don't have this thing and I don't have that thing. And it's like, oh, that will prevent you from accomplishing a lot. But then at the same time, we're always accomplishing some of the things we want, right? And we just overlook that so often, and we don't give ourselves credit.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that just by the laws of the universe that we are really, talking about lately, that we aren't, if you don't value what you have, then you can't have more. And so to the whole evidence board of like, I'm recognizing the accomplishments that I am making. So then you're focused on that and you're giving thanks for that and you're keeping your focus there. So then you're able to accomplish more. If you're constantly focused on what you don't have and what you're not doing, then you're not going to receive more or do more because that's not where your focus is. And so I think that the vision board is awesome. And then the evidence board is a great follow-up to that, to complete that process and to keep it's motivating, and it keeps you in that creative state and noticing the accomplishments, not noticing what's not being done. So
yeah, like
awesome.
Full circle into fitness, like clients that go, I can go into my closet and put anything on and I feel good in my clothes, or I have more energy and I keep up with my kids more. And they might not look the way they want to look all the way yet. And it's easy to kind of stand in the mirror and pick apart your weaknesses. But like you said, like, well, what great things have you accomplished? You wake up, you sleep better, or you have more energy to run around with your kids, or you just feel like your gut health is better because you're more aware of what you're eating and you're making just subconsciously healthier decisions to at a restaurant or to walk a little bit further or to take the stairs. But even when you're not 100% in all of the components in fitness, it's like, well, stop for a second because you're better, right? And I have to have this conversation all the time because they do lose motivation if they think I should have been so much further by now. And I know there's that perpetual place of feeling like you're restarting, but you're never fully restarting. You've accomplished a little bit and you just have goals to get further, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you put it in the component of fitness. That's so easy to do, but you could put it in the component of spirituality or relationships or business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it just goes on where your focus is, right? Focus is such a huge component of life. But to your point, like, it's, I've been there. I've lost money, a lot of money. I lost a business, I've lost weight. My thyroid kind of freaked out a little bit and lost some weight. But it's like, when you, in the moment at that point, can you focus on what you desire or what you've lost? Like, which one are you going to focus on, right? And we see people and you see people in training them start shifting that focus and shifting that mentality to what's possible. And geez, things can happen really quick in life, right? That we can accomplish things so fast in life when we let go of what was and focus on what is and what can be by simple application, by simple upgrades and removing these emotions and upgrading our mentality, in putting forth effort in the gym, in, tweaking the nutrition a little bit. Like, you see massive results in people, we see massive results in people all in like, and to me, it just boils down to where your focus is, right? I mean, even on our call a couple of weeks ago, I asked who spends more than 10 minutes a day focusing on what they desire, and not many people raise their hands. And I asked this to a different group of people a couple of weeks ago, of about 70 of them 70 people, like, who here spends more than 10 minutes a day focusing on what they desire or what they want to improve or bring into their life? And I mean, there were very few that raised their hand. And so the point is with fitness, the point is with business, the point is with money, with any point in life, where is our focus going, right? Which is driven by subconscious and emotions in the moment. But you bring up such a good component that, when people let go, so many things are possible. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you've been through. It doesn't matter, what's going on. Is you can become somebody entirely different in such a short amount of time if you're willing.
Yeah, there's probably nobody that has come to you that you're like, sorry, it's not in the cards for you to be physically fit, right? I mean,
No.
It's
yeah.
possible
Right.
for
No,
Sorry,
it's possible for anybody.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't.
And like you said,
Go ahead. Sorry.
taking the time frame off of it, because I think that's one thing that does deter a lot of people with making money or getting in shape, is like they put this like time as like this deterrent, instead of just like the time's going to pass either way. And honestly, once you kind of let go of that, it happens so much quicker. Like meeting the person of your dreams, if you're not in a relationship, it's like, well, that's never going to happen for me because there's so scarce out there, right? Dating sucks. The world of dating is I hear it from everybody, honestly. Like everybody's dating is the worst. And as I've gone through my single life as of late, like I get it, and I'm not perfect at it. Like I do get caught up in like dwelling on like, oh, it's not gonna happen for me, or this time, or this. And I have to check myself like all of the time. Like, Heather, like this isn't what you preach. Like practice what you preach. Live in a mindset of abundance. Like there's millions of people in the world, and you might have met a few here and there, and they're just not your person. And it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means like you're elevating yourself to have that person, because you have to be in that mindset of who you want to meet before they're going to find you.
Yeah, it
So
hasn't been
I
enough
think,
time, right? It just hasn't
right,
been enough time.
right.
They're preparing, you're preparing, and when you meet,
Or it
you'll
could happen tomorrow, and it could be the
Totally.
person of my dream. So it's just like you just got to let go of having any sort of like time limit to yourself, because as soon as you let go, that's maybe when it's going to come. Like we know that in so many
Right.
areas, right? Like just let go of holding yourself like it seems so far away. So I'm just going to do this because it's so far away. Well, if you live like that, it is going to be so far away.
Yeah.
You have to be like, it could happen tomorrow. It could happen in an hour from now. I don't know. But like whatever, and not that fitness is going to happen overnight, but like it one step at a time, picking that next meal instead of going like, well, I had pizza last night, so the weekend's screwed, so I'll just start on Monday. Like, no, how about just like that next meal, make it something you enjoy, that's not going to be like, feel like you're depriving yourself, but like something that does work towards that ultimate goal that you have. Or get up and like, I have a Peloton sitting right here. And I'm like, okay, just like instead of going like, oh, I don't want to, like just walk over and get on it and like start pedaling. Like it doesn't have to be like this whole grand event. I think I have to change and all that stuff. I'm like, no, I'll get these clothes sweaty. Who cares?
Yeah, totally.
Right. Well, it's like how to eat an elephant, right? A bite at a time. And that's the point. And I think I love that you brought up time, and Altee, you brought up time too. Is time such a funny thing, because like you said, it hasn't been enough time, but I think we fixate on time. But if you look at the universe in general, the universe doesn't run off of time, right?
No.
The universe runs off of energy. And so it just depends on what you're open to. Like you said, time is such a funny thing, because I think we have to be somewhat, not somewhat, but we have to be aware of it. But we also have to disregard it at the same time. It's like that sweet spot balance again, because we got to be aware of how much time, is available in a day, and, how much time under tension and working out and, pause sets and things like that. Like time is relevant, at a job or at work or things like that. But at the same time, like you said, man, God and universe can manifest things so quickly that it's like, that's where the faith
Focus on
comes
what you
in,
can.
right? Faith has
Yes.
to override time because, you know, Altee said a couple times, like, it hasn't been enough time. Well, I talk to a lot of people, like, we're, you know, big on relationships, obviously, because that relationship with self is so important. And that's what will determine the quality of the relationships around you as well. But to your point, like, in, you know, a lot of my friends that have been through, you know, breakups or divorces, you know, I'll talk to them and just be like, hey, what if you met, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Wonderful tomorrow? And they're like, well, that would be too fast. I'm like, why though? According to what? Right? Like, and it's like,
well,
it's like, we got to start opening up ourselves up to this possibility. And it's like, well, what if, you know, 10 million bucks showed up tomorrow in an opportunity? Would you take it? Would you be ready? And it's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that. And it's like, you know, I think there's so many opportunities.
Then you wouldn't be, right?
Right.
You're like, well,
right.
then get your, like, focus on what you can then. Right. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No,
Yes.
you're not cutting me off. I love that. But I think you brought up such a great point in the time aspect. It's like your person could show up this afternoon. Right.
Well,
and it's like, are you aware and open to that possibility of taking your idea of time out of the picture?
It's attachment is what I think it comes down to.
Right.
So it's the attachment. So being aware of time is fine. So when I say that, like, it hasn't been enough time yet, it just is like, it hasn't happened yet. Time is irrelevant.
Yes.
Right. You know, and so it's
absolutely.
it's just a metric that we measure whatever with, but it's like, okay, it's when it boils down to it, it's really an attachment to an expectation. So when you let that go, then you can be aware of time, and it's been days and it's been years or whatever. And that's okay, because we're not attached to a time frame. So I think it's, once you can detach from that, then you can be aware of time, and it can come and go as it needs to. And you're working on preparing to receive the desires of your heart.
Yeah. Cause it is that attachment.
I fully agree with you.
Yeah, it is that attachment, because, you know, I've talked to several people that are like, you know, I would be ready for a relationship in a couple years. And I'm like, that may limit you though. Like, I mean, and if that's what you want, that's good. That's great. And that, you know, maybe that's, you know, what will happen for you. But, you know, I think the shifting our hearts and minds, and even our verbiage to, you know what, I'm open to whatever greatness is possible for me. I'm open to, you know, I'm open to meeting someone tonight. I'm open to meeting someone tomorrow. I'm open to meeting someone, you know, whenever they show up. What I know is this is what I desire. And in the relationship aspect, it's like, okay, if like you were saying, like, you've had this chance to rediscover self and rediscover what makes you tick, and, you know, what love and passion and everything means to you. And it's like, if we want that in a partner, really all we got to do is start saying, okay, what do I desire in a partner? And then start adopting those things, right? Start applying those things, start becoming those things. Well, if I want love, I got to start showing myself an increase of love, because that's what I was missing in the last one. Or, you know, I got to start showing myself more compassion and more grace and more courtesy and more kindness, you know. And when you start analyzing those things and really start developing those things, that's when, you know, you become, those sound dangerous. The two guys stopped me at the gym, right before this. I was at the Vasa down here in St. George, and two guys stopped me and they were like, hey, you know, they have this supplement brand, and we were talking. I told them we recorded this podcast, and they're like, that's so awesome. I love when Jordan Peterson says you need to become a monster, and then you need to learn how to control it. And I think that applies so well to not only the fitness industry and increasing strength, increasing muscle, you know, but to the mental and emotional state of, you know, become a monster in the best way possible, right? Become so powerful, but know how to control it, and become those things that you seek in other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, because someone to say, like, when I first separated, I had the advice of like, okay, you need to be alone for a little while. And that's fine. I can see that component, but what does that look like? And what does that mean? And what is a little while? Like someone's like, oh, I'll be ready for a relationship in 2 years. What does that 2 years look like? And why is it 2 years? Because if you're like, as far as I go, what I wanted to make sure was to understand why I picked the relationships I picked and why they didn't work out. So when I can recognize in myself what I wanted to adjust and fix so I can be aware and responsive to seeing, maybe instead of forcing, which I think in the past when I picked relationships in my past, it was like I had this idea of what it looked like, and then this person comes along and they were interested in me. And so I was like trying to shove them into this box. And I'm like, okay, they, you know what I mean? Maybe they don't meet this, but like I could like kind of conform a little bit to help like them meet my expectations instead of them just like meeting my expectations. Because I want a certain like obviously reciprocity in a relationship. If immediately there's a no, and I'm not saying it's something wrong with them, it's just not yes for me, then I need to go, okay, this is a no. I don't need to like force this person just because they're interested, or vice versa. Like they're not interested in me. What am I lacking? It's not me lacking. It's just I'm not their person. And so you kind of can step out of it and go, we are just not each other's person. Like I am working on myself, and these are the things that I think that, and I know that I need in a relationship. They don't meet that. It was nice meeting you, moving on to the next one. Not because you're lacking something. You just don't fit my goals in life. Like someone that's a very religious person, maybe if that's not my goal and I like want to have a glass of wine or something, but it's something they're not going to do, I just feel like we're not matching up. And that's like a very like minimal thing that could be, here or there. But that's just like a simple way to say, you could be ready for it, but if you're solid in who you are and what you want, and you're stable and emotionally okay, over the last little bit being single and understanding myself and going into my emotional and mental strength, knowing like what is a yes, or understanding, or just that feeling or that vibe, it's a no. Even though they check all these boxes, it doesn't mean you have to go, well, why am I saying it's a no? It needs to be a yes. Nope, it's a no. Like it's okay with that's a no. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be another person that comes along that is always going to be a no. There's going to be a yes out there. And so I think that's where like you said, there hasn't been enough time. You're absolutely right, because the time that's passed, that right person hasn't come into it, but it doesn't mean it can't happen. Being so solid in what I know I need, what I expect, and what I want, and like letting go of if that person says you're not it for them for whatever reason, or they break up with you, or they distance themselves for you, you take that as a win for you, because that just means they're not for you. It doesn't mean you're lacking anything. It just means like, the person that's for you is going to love all of those things that this person that just left you didn't love.
Totally.
That's what I've kind of learned as going through my single life so far.
Yes.
Well, and even gratitude. I love that you bring that up. Gratitude for who they were and what they taught you, right? Because I think everyone we come in contact with, to a certain extent, we have, I don't know if you want to call it a contract or an ideal or something that, we're here to teach each other, right? And help each other along the way. So, the more we can gather from other people, the better we are. And likewise, them from us too. And that's what you said, like, it may not, like when you say like, oh, I'll be ready in 2 years. I think everyone's healing process, just like everyone's fitness progress, is different, because everyone's makeup is different, right? Everyone's physiology is different. The way everyone's muscles process things, the way people's nervous system processes things, hearts and brains processes things. Everyone's different. But I think the great part is and where we should be focused on is the more I improve this, right? I'm pointing to myself if you can't see me. The more I improve my heart, the more I open up my heart to becoming better and learning the lessons that I've gone through, and really applying that knowledge and applying that that strength and increasing my capacities for kindness towards myself and love towards myself and service for other people and love for other people, the more relationships will just show up, right? By law of attraction, by God and universe sending things our way so we benefit. Because that's what we're here to do, is experience joy. And I think we've all learned that in different aspects, but I love seeing you in, and thanks for displaying this on this podcast, but I love seeing you in these different arenas, because you've really adopted these things and you've become the things that
you've become skilled in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, you've become skilled and balanced in so many different of these areas. And that's just it's a wonderful thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're disciplined. You're disciplined in your physical fitness. You're disciplined in your, your emotional and mental well-being and all of that. And it shows. And, there's still areas that we're all working on, that just hasn't had enough time to come to fruition yet.
Right. It will. Just all about progress, right? What I can control, or what we can control.
Yeah, Kevin started saying earlier, one of my most favorite things I've ever heard Tony Robbins say, and that was he was talking to this kid that was suicidal at one of his events, and Tony Robbins just, was kind of up in his face and just like, what's the problem? Like, just kind of, and he just said,
he had really red shoes. Red shoes.
He had red shoes on. He's, what's the problem? Is it because you're wearing effing red shoes? Is that why you're upset? But he just said, listen, most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in a decade. And, it's like, oh my gosh, a whole year's gone by and I'm not at my fitness goal, or I'm not married yet, or whatever. But it's like, in 10 years from now, or when you look back over the last 10 years and what you've accomplished, it's like, wow, I have strung together some major wins, some really high highs, some low lows, and some massive progress. And so that's kind of my, when I share that with clients who, maybe it's like, I'm really struggling with my in-laws right now. I'm like, give it 10 years, and maybe it changes tomorrow, right? Because what that does is it allows you to detach from the time aspect of it. Like, it has to change now. It has to, something's got to give right away. And it's like, detach from the time frame, push it out 10 years. What if it takes a decade? Look at where you are now compared to a decade ago. And then it kind of allows you to let go of the expectation of time and change and how long it should take. And then, if it takes longer than a year, it'll probably take less than a decade, more than likely, But in a decade from now, what you want right now probably won't even matter anyway. So it's just a matter of really letting go, in the moment, and being able to say, I'm not going to overestimate or underestimate what I can do. And it allows you to live in more of a state of acceptance in the moment.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's so true.
And I also think, to add to that, it's like, be aware, right? You brought it up, Heather, is what happened? Where's the evidence? What did you do? And now, whatever you want, readjust and refocus, right? You mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast is, you went to that numb state to cope with everything that was going on. And we've all been there. But to the listeners, it's like, don't let yourself stay in that numb state for too long, because everyone has so much possibility, and we cut ourselves short all the time. If we go back to that David Goggins, when we think we're done, we're only at 40%. Like, there's that 60% still there that is possible, right? And you've seen that, we've seen that. If you're stressed out, if you're numbed out, if you want some, improvement in body composition, we'll link, Heather's Instagram and her website in the show notes. Yeah. Golden Consulting. My
website's just my name, luckily. It's heatherdees.com.
Okay.
So,
that's easy. heatherdees.com.
Yes. Heather Dees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, my web app is coming. That's going to be the Golden Consulting. But for now, it's just heatherdees.com. I have my training programs on there. Email link, even just to reach out if you have any questions. But also, you can DM me on Instagram. Those are probably the two easiest ways to get a hold of me, is through Instagram or just heatherdees.com.
That's awesome.
Right
and
now.
You have other coaches that work with you, right?
Yeah, I have a assistant coach, Emily. She works with me. She's amazing. She has a really cool story herself. She's gone through addiction, rehabilitation, and then her whole fitness journey, just to see her before and afters and the progress. And even our conversations on an emotional and mental state has been so inspiring to hear her story and her journey. I know she reaches other people that have gone through different types of addictions, but just because as much as I have felt it so close to me, I've never actually physically gone through addiction. And it's become such a place in my heart, just having so many clients and just even people I love that have faced addiction. It's something that I've kind of want to dive into now. It's one of the passions to know how to help people. I mean, we were just talking about numbing, and I think that at the bottom line is addiction comes because of numbing, and whether that be childhood trauma or coping mechanism through daily struggles or whatever it may be. But I am feeling more and more the level and the amount of people that face it, that's either hidden, facing it alone, or coming out and vocalizing what they're going through, and then trying to understand the why behind it and how we can help. I have my own ideas behind rehab, what rehab looks like right now in the world, and how much more I feel like we could offer people. And we've all talked about that, but something that I think is going to become such a passion for me. But Emily, my assistant coach, yes, she is there. She does a lot of my online clients as well. She's so great. She's such a happy person. You can kind of feel her energy, and she's kind of a fun person I get to work with almost on a daily basis.
That's awesome. And that's fun. And one of the conversations that we had when we were doing some work and just kind of collaborating and stuff was talking about addiction recovery and not making that your identity. And, I know there's theories behind, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm an addict or whatever. And really talking about changing the perspective on that the total narrative.
Yeah.
And like, I am Altee and I am limitless, and finding some of those programs that cause that disconnection.
Gives me the chills when you said that. I love that so much.
Just find the disconnection behind the mind, body, spirit disconnection, that they've forgotten who they are. They're an addict. It's something they turn to cope because they didn't like the way they felt.
Right.
And so they looked for
and society wants to label them, and so they adopt it, and then it's like, what you think manifests, right? So it's like, how are you ever going to get out of it when you sit there and label yourself
and reinforce
something?
it?
I mean, yeah, it hurts my heart to hear people say like anything negative about themselves, especially those that are so close to me, people that I love so much, for them to limit themselves. Like you just said, I'm Altee, I'm limitless. And I think everybody has that capability, and they just need to believe in that. And we've got to find a way that we can help a lot of people that struggle with addiction to understand that component and find the reason why it's there and how they can come out of it without like diving into, I think you have talked about this, like a lot of it's like diving into past trauma, and like sitting in that trauma is not really beneficial. It's kind of like finding the actual positive side or the upside of emotion that matches that lower vibration, right?
Yeah, replacing that. And I mean, the work that we do is sometimes we go in and find some of those connections, but I think it's so much more powerful to replace those rather than going back and sitting in it again, because the reason why you're trying to escape is because you didn't like the way it felt originally. So to go repeat them and to deepen those neural pathways, I think is counterproductive. So it's all about removing those layers of really interference between who we are and who we think we are, and remembering the wholeness that we are. It's kind of an illusion that's been created, and so it's merging that mind, body, spirit alignment again to remind yourself of the wholeness that you always have been. You just forgot.
Right. Well, we become what we repeatedly do and what we repeatedly tell ourselves, right? And so, there's a lot of people. Dr. Bruce Lipton says, if you're not happy, just repeat to yourself, I'm happy, and you'll eventually become happy, right? It goes a little deeper than that. Obviously, we know that, but it depends on what your daily habits are. And that's why, we are what we repeatedly do and what we repeatedly tell ourselves and what we repeatedly feel and think, right? It's a balanced approach. And so, I love that you bring that up, but yeah, we're all on the same page. We'll make some efforts to, help those in the, addiction community or any community really, because we don't even want to label that. But I think we all have,
the struggle community.
Yeah, the struggle community, because we all have addictions. Like I'm addicted to the gym. Like I hate when I miss the gym, but not to that, but we all want progression and we all want, relief and we all want peace. I think that's what,
and we all have our thing that we go to,
right?
Or, to feel different.
But power in numbers, right? We all want to come together and strive to become better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and accept and love through it instead of
right.
putting on conditions to our love for those who have struggles, especially those ones that we think are that we do love, like we really do love them, and then we say, well, I'll love you if you look like this,
right? And
then they're over here like, well, this struggle is something you don't love, so you're probably not going to love me, and then that just pushes people deeper into that numbing source, right? So unconditional love, I think, is a term that a lot of people say but don't necessarily understand. They don't apply. And probably me too. I've probably had my places where I'm like, okay, if I love this person, I'm going to love them regardless of what they're doing. But then obviously you can have your boundaries too. But that's just one thing is I want you to unconditionally love yourself enough to not label yourself negative things, because you're not those negative things.
Right.
Well, yeah, encouragement by, uplifting emotions, encouragement by, I guess we could say it like this, encouragement by love is completely different than encouragement by shame, right? And try to tell someone what they've done poorly to get them to, become better is a really interesting dichotomy. It's a really interesting approach.
Right. Love is a much better motivator.
Yeah.
Right.
Rather than fear, right? Encouragement by fear or encouragement by love. And there's some components to, to people, fearing going back to something and letting that drive them. But we see so much better results with encouragement by love and possibility.
Right. Yeah.
Well, once you understand that state, then you're less willing to compromise it to go back into those feelings of shame and fear, right? It's like, okay, I'm not necessarily happy with the choices I've made or what I've done, but I'm not going to compromise the peace that I feel right now to go back into that downward, tailspin, downward cycle. And so I'm just going to take it from here and move to where I want to go, in a state of peace and love. And I think that's a much better way to navigate the difficulties of life. And that's what we want to help with. So I think that we're all here to help and share, and that's what we get to do.
Yes. We're going to figure that out and come up with a game plan so we can help as many people as possible. Because like I said, that's just what promotes our own growth too, right? It's just that
absolutely
service and that help and understanding and loving.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you want to cover? I think I lost my notes, but I think we covered everything that, we were kind of talking about that we wanted to talk about.
I feel like we could talk for days, I think, especially with how much passion we all have towards everything that we've discussed. But I am good. I mean, maybe we'll have a follow-up if we have more ideas later on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'd have you on the podcast anytime. And again, thank you for being here. Thanks for your time. Everyone's time is, we've talked about time. Everyone's time is important, and we appreciate you dedicating some time to share your story, and thanks for being vulnerable and sharing where you've been, where you've come to, your accomplishments, that evidence of the greatness that you've experienced in life and where you want to go. So thank you. We love you as a dear friend, so we appreciate you being on the podcast. But again, thank you for listening to the Healing Works podcast, where we, really encourage improvement in life, and we're here to help with that with Heather Dees and the physical approach, but also from the heart and the mind approach, so a well-balanced approach. So again, thank you for listening.